Hi guys, so in today's video we're going to be doing a little bit of a longer video than usual. I thought I'd try and leave quite a lot of this job in to give you guys a really good look at it. Especially John, you love your long videos, and also Stuart, who's a subscriber and also a regular with myself on like training days. He comes and does a lot, and this is his particular car that we've been working on, that he's bought for his daughter for Christmas, that we've been doing all the bodywork on together and all the paint prep and getting it all ready so we can get it tidied up and give it a quick flash over in time for his daughter, who has just passed the test. So she'll be getting this as a nice little Christmas gift, and congratulations to you on passing your test as well. So we're going to start off with a bit of wet and wet primer. Now I've been using this little Ego 190 for wet and wet. It's just the right size, I find. I first tried it when I was wetting up some test panels for a training day, and it worked really well. For the fan size and the speed, and the lay down on this wet on wet was really nice and flat when it dried out, nice and smooth, which is just what I wanted. The setup in this is the 1.2. Now the wet on wet itself is the MEPA high build. So the MEPA high build can be mixed 3:1 instead of 4:1, and then you add 30% thinners, and that'll give you a really nice smooth applying wet and wet. Now I know some guys have got like a dedicated wet and wet gun, but because I want the wet and wet to be smooth, I generally use it for, through like one of my top coat guns. So I might put it like through my 1.2 XL Segola, or like here I'm going to put it through the 1.2 HTE, because I found this is really nice and really accurate for doing wet on wet with. I've not tried it in one of the bigger ones yet, but again, with them being like a really nice smooth applying gun, I can get this nice fine coat down, that'll dry off nice and smooth, and then that'll give me a lovely sealed up surface then to shoot straight over with some direct gloss. Now the paint code for this car, if anyone is interested, is Fiat 111-A. We're doing this in a MEPA 2K direct gloss. I quite like the MEPA direct gloss, so I've ordered that in especially for this job, because I find it lays, it's just like laying clear coat. It's really nice to paint. Now a colour like this particular red, any of these rub throughs and stuff like that are gonna create probably a couple of issues across the car with actually colouring it up, because red's just one of those horrendous colours to cover. Hence I don't want all these different sort of rub through areas, and we've got light areas, we've got dark areas, we've got primed areas. So we're just going to sort of blend these primed areas in, just flick over these rub throughs and a few tiny little bits of metal edges, but very 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 minimal metal edges, and just basically seal everything up where it's all been blocked out. So we've got a real nice sort of clean surface, so when we start shooting the gloss red on, it should colour up then pretty quickly. If I didn't go around and do this, don't get me wrong, the MEPA is pretty good for coverage in this particular colour, so it would colour up alright, but I'd be into more than 3 coats. Now I'll put the first coat on this, which you'll see in the video. The second coat I've left out just so we don't make the video too long, and then I just put a third finishing coat in the gloss on, which you'll see at the end, and then we'll have a quick little walk around of the car. So as you can see, although this is a little gun, or you know what would be classed as a minigun, it's got no issue whatsoever smashing out a panel. And I've got the fan turned down quite a bit on this, so that's not running full fan or full fluid or anything like that. This can be wound out to a lot more, but I just wanted to keep it small and accurate for those smaller areas. And then on these larger bits like here, where Stuart himself has repaired all this quarter panel on this, I just wanted to cover up those little bare areas where we just rub through to the filler a tiny bit, just tweaking up that arch line, and just basically just blend out all these different edges so it's just a bit more feathered and a little bit nicer to paint over. Now as far as the gloss work goes on this, I've decided to run a medium hardener and a slow reducer in the Meeper gloss, because I wanted plenty of time to keep the car wet. Hopefully, with the theory of obviously having the wing and the bonnet in there, what I wanted to do was get all the way around the car and try and paint the bonnet and the wing whilst the car was wet, and try and reduce the amount of nibs in it, which is another reason why I've gone for paper. I do prefer paper when I'm masking up a respray. I tend to find it a little bit easier. I tend to find that I can get jobs a little bit cleaner when I'm using paper on like a large job like this compared to poly. And I don't know, I suppose I'm a bit old school in that way. I like the look of the paper compared to the poly. There's a lot less chance of stuff sticking to the static of the sheet, obviously compared to, there's a lot less chance of it sticking to the paper rather than the static of the sheet. You just see there, I'm just checking up them bonnet edges. Now, I decided not to wet and wet them edges, but then after I put the gun down, I switched the camera off. I was like, no, I am just going to wet and wet them edges just to be on the safe side. Now, this wet and wet, I've left the booth running for, I'd say around about 20 minutes, maybe half an hour, at around about 20 to 25 degrees, to let this wet and wet really flash off nicely. Now, obviously, with wet on wet, what you don't want to do is leave it overnight and let it fully cure. You want it to dry, but you've got that limit for the adhesion of, obviously materials going over the top. So, around about 20 minutes, half an hour at 20 degrees, it's going to flash off nicely. It'll be dry enough that I can go around and I can tack it and I can apply the gloss over the top, but it's not going to be too dry that nothing's going to stick. And you can probably tell now that's dried down, it's got a real nice smooth lay down on all of that, so I'm quite happy. For the gloss, I'm going to be using the WALCOM CARBONIO 360. Now, I've just put a 1.2 in this. I have been trying out a 1.3, but I've just got hold of the 1.2 setup, and also the new MP, which is the motivated painters developed air cap, which is supposed to give a slightly flatter finish, whereas the standard cap is supposed to, be sort of more towards the OEM work, whereas this would be more suited, in effect, really, to a job like this, where it's a full hit, so I can adjust the finish that I want. Now, this is the first and only use so far that I've had of this cap. Well, it is when I was doing this video. I've used it again since. So I'm not really going to give too many thoughts on this cap, because it is quite a different spraying style compared to the conventional cap. The conventional cap that the Carbonio comes with, you'd spray at sort of standard distances, whereas like this, you spray it around 10 centimeters, so around about 4 inches from the panel. You're supposed to be quite close. Now, that does take a bit of getting used to. And you can see here, this is literally the first time that I have put paint in the gun with this cap on it, so I'm just using the back of the wing here, just adjusting my settings a little bit to get a lay down that feels like I'm getting the right amount of paint, because not only have I changed the cap, but I've also changed from the 1.3, which is something that I'm more used to, down to the 1.2. I have to say it did a very nice job on this, and I can't say what it's like for clear because I haven't used it for clear, but it should lay clear down the same as it's laying gloss down. It shouldn't really make much difference. It's, the same sort of product. I started off at around about 2 turns out for this first coat, just to give it a nice light tack coat and just to get some colour on there, so that I could put the next coats on a little bit heavier. So I've gone for, I think it was 1.5 turns in from fully open on the fan. I've got it 2 turns out on the fluid for this first coat, and I've got it at 2 bar. Now, for the next coats, the fan stayed the same, so did the pressure, but for the second and third coat, I wound it out up to 3 turns, because I was just trying to find the sweet spot and also just tweak the gun to what felt right. I don't think I've got it at the sweet spot that I'm happy with yet. I think based on what I can do with the standard cap, I could push this cap and this setup a lot flatter than I got this car. Not to say that this wasn't flat, it's a lot better than factory, the off the gun finish, but I think with a little bit more playing, because as I've said, I'll always try and be honest with you guys, this is blatant disclaimer, this is 100% the first time that I've used this. The only thing that I have done was put a little bit of thinners in it and spray it through just to make sure that the fluid tip and the cap were clean before I started doing this job. But as you can see, as we're going around this job, it's wetting up nice. I'm taking my time on this first coat, especially with it being red. I want to make sure I catch all these edges and get them nice and covered on this first coat, just in case at any future passes you accidentally miss it. I'm just trying to go for a nice sort of 50% overlap, a nice even coverage across the car, just to try and give this thing a really nice gun finish that hopefully when me and Stuart finish this off, we can just give this a little nib and a polish around the car, and then it look really nice. Now, we're not doing the door shuts or anything because they're all good. There's no issues with them. But anyone who's seen any of these Fiat 500s before, they do have a lot of problems with like flaking clear coat and flaking paint. This one's had quite a bit of paint in its life, so like the two sides have been painted and they weren't the best. The repairs and everything that done were fine, but the actual paintwork was left a bit to be desired, so to speak. So it was just a case of tidying it up, and there was repairs on this quarter right up to this door edge. It's had a new wing on the other side and a few repairs down that other side where it had a bit of a bump. Not massively, you know, there's no major damage on this car. It's just like both arches have been knocked, and a few little bits and bobs. The majority of it was more just sort of poorly painted parts and poorly done paintwork and poorly finished as well. You know, I think the way that it looked, if it had a good flat and polish, it probably would have looked alright when they'd finished their work, but unfortunately they didn't. So there was a lot of crap in the paint and just a lot of missteps that could have made it a nicer car. So when we were looking at it, it pretty much needed the whole car done. The roof needed doing because that had peeling clear on it. So we've blacked out the roof and the spoiler. Or I say Stuart did that himself. I sort of tutored him through the paint on that on one of the days that we did together. And then we finished off the prep on the car. And then I said that to help him out, I would get the shell painted so we could get it done and sorted in time for his daughter for Christmas. But most of it, like the roof, that was just all peeling clear coat. The boot, again, no damage, just peeling clear coat. The bonnet, again, no damage, just peeling clear on it. So everything's been taken back. It's been primed where it needs it. It's had a few little bits of fine filler in some stone chips and some really light scratches, because it's not an old car, but it's not a new one. And it's one of them sort of things that if we're doing it, we might as well give it a proper flash over. Because, say, the driver's door and the driver's wing, they were both absolutely fine. They had no damage on them whatsoever. But it was a case of the way that the car was looking, it'd be literally those two panels would be the only panels on the whole car that we wouldn't touch. And with the amount of blending we'd have to do around the front end, and also down that side to make it look right, it'd just be a shame for the sake of probably half an hour's work in prep and masking not to flash the door and the wing over the other side and just make a tidier job of it. We're going to re-clear the headlights on it as well, because the headlights are a bit faded, so we're going to sand them back and re-clear them, and it should make a very quite tidy car when it's finished, to be fair. Now, this is coat number 3. So the first coat covered pretty well. After the second coat, it looked nice and covered, and I couldn't see any issues. And you can probably see there, you know, the finish is coming up really nice on it. And then I just wanted to give it one more coat, with it being, you know, just I could see it was covered on the second one. So this is a just in case coat. So if there is any little areas that we need to polish, then we can just give it a quick polish. And it also gives a little bit more paint down the life of the car, with it being 2K gloss, that if, you know, Stuart or anyone wants to polish it up in the future, you know, if it starts to, you know, get a lot of car washes or look a bit faded or anything, there'll be plenty of material there that can be played with. And we'll have a little bit of the colour left over as well, just in case there's any issues down the line. You know, maybe it gets a little bit of a scuff on a bumper, or someone opens a car door on it, it'll have a bit of paint left over as well to do those little bits of touch-ups. But overall, I was pretty happy with the way that this gun was laying down as well, with this air cap set up. It felt a little bit strange at first, trying to get so up close with the spray gun compared to like the conventional setup, so to speak, on one of these Carbonios. It felt like I was getting really close and really tight, so I was just taking my time. But you can see, you know, it is sort of marketed as a flat applying cap. This obviously first use, I've only got so much to gauge off it so far, so like I said, you know, it's not a review on the cap or anything, but it seemed nice. It did seem to put a real nice flat finish down. I had no issues with that. I didn't want to push it too far as wetness goes with it being a direct gloss, because if you get a running direct gloss, it can, where the run sags down, it can sort of, all the pigments sort of move around a little bit too much and pool up, so you can have issues trying to get runs out of direct gloss. So I didn't want to risk getting a run in it. I just wanted a nice finish. You know, I'd have been happy with a nice factory finish on it, to be fair, but it has come out a lot nicer than factory. I just wanted a nice, real nice freshen up, nice bright coat of paint, you know, nice and glossy, nice and smooth, and then we can just give it a quick nib, and this will make a really nice first car then. As far as the bonnet goes, I haven't shown the coats, the first 2 coats on the bonnet, just because it'd be a bit of a long-winded video if I showed every bit of every part of this repaint. But I did the first 2 coats on the bonnet with the bonnet sort of vertically on a stand, and then for the last coat to just get the bonnet to flow out, I laid it down sort of, I'd say, you know, almost flat, so we could load the bonnet up a little bit more. Now, the reason that I did that, obviously I've got a lot of stuff in the booth, and I want to try and keep it as clean as I can to make the polishing as short as I can. So I figured if I paint the bonnet with the bonnet set up vertically, there's a lot less chance of nibs and crap landing in it. And then if I put it down for the last coat to give it a real nice wet full flow, then it'll just help wet the bonnet up, but also reduce the amount of dust and crap that can get in the bonnet, because obviously it's not a big flat panel then just sat there, if that makes sense. So on the previous coats it was stood up, and on this final coat I just laid it down to wet it out and just glass it out. So again, you know, it should just be, hopefully, after it's had 3 coats, just nib any big bits out of it, because all the little bits really will be covered by the paint depth, and then I can just give it a little bit of a nib and a quick polish on the bonnet, and then that should be nice and clean as well. But overall, I have to say I was pretty happy with this job. It's something that me and him haven't spent a massive amount of time on. It's not a huge car, obviously, but I think we've only spent like a couple of days between us on the weekends, sort of doing the body and the prep and everything on this, and also getting the roof prepped and painted and masked and all that sort of stuff. But overall, it's looking pretty tidy compared to what it was when he first brought it down. And you can probably see on this wing, when I finished painting this wing up, the kind of finish that was easily achievable with this gloss and with this gun. Just overall, I'd say it's come out really nice. I did, on the bonnet, slow down a little bit and tighten my overlap a little bit. It's somewhat, as far as the lay down with this gun, that's going to take a tiny bit of getting used to with this cap. Don't get wrong, you know, as you can see there, it's knocking out a lovely finish, but I just feel like I could push it a lot further. I just need to get a test panel out myself, get some clear mixed up one day, spend an hour in the booth with a couple of test panels, just to see just how far I can push the overlap tighter, and also just get a little bit more used to the distance with this, because that was one thing that sort of not put me off, but one thing I'm so used to spraying at a certain distance that I'm comfortable at, whereas this just wants a little bit closer than what I'm normally used to. So like on this bonnet, I've slowed down quite a lot, I've put a touch of extra fluid, and I'm just really going over this now, wetting this up with it laid down like that, for that final coat, which then, fingers crossed, once that's flowed out, it did give me a really nice clean finish on the bonnet. So I'll give you a last little walk around so you can see a little bit of the finish and just what the car looked like when it was done. You can see it's nice. It is a lot flatter than a factory finish. especially for something in direct gloss. It's come up really well. I was quite happy with the job. Like I said, you know, a little bit more playing with this spray gun, I think I could push this a lot further, but for a direct gloss job, you know, just I wouldn't say a cheap, but a relatively cost-effective repaint, it's come up absolutely lovely. And once me and Stuart have spent a few hours putting it back together and giving it a quick nib and a polish, this should make a really nice car for his daughter. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I will leave a link in the description to the spray gun in the video description, and don't forget that I will leave also the discount code for SP Supplies in the video description as well, if you guys want to pick up 5% off on any of the products on their website. So that's it for me for today, guys, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.